Hey, everybody. Welcome back. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about maxims of law a little bit more. You see, I, I want some definitions that we got from Mark Christopher. And Josh plays some talks on loop on the CB and broadcast and also on radio. And actually, he doesn't do it on the CB. He talks on the CB, but he plays the loops on the radio. I think I got that. I got Josh on the phone with me right now. How you doing, Josh?
Doing good. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. I'm
No,
an idiot.
no worries. Glad to have you here. So, anyways, Josh and I were talking a little bit, and we started talking about the maxims of law. And Josh said, Ethan, you left a lot of very important learning knowledge out of your reading. And I did. However, I didn't really realize it at the time. The main reason that I left a large portion of that out is because the author is dealing with the crown courts, and we don't have the crown courts here, but we do have the uh, de facto what is it, maritime courts. It's basically the same thing. It's all run by the bar, and so uh, Josh says that's very important information, and Josh is here willing to read it and make commentary on some of the important points. So we know how everybody is busy. It's hard to search out a document, even though I've got this up on the website for you, and I did the talk. Um, People aren't taking the time to get there for whatever reason it is. So we're here to make it a little easier, get this information out because it's important, and that's what we're all about. And taking action. And Josh is a man that does both. So with that, Josh, let her rip, brother. Brother, anything you got to say, or get right into the reading?
Yeah, I'm just gonna jump in by saying that I believe that we've all got to do our part, and we've all got to stand up. So this is me. I figured, I'd go ahead and, do it because maybe sometimes it is easier to just set your phone down and just listen sometimes because you got to do things. And, you can take and hold your finger on the phone or click your settings on the video, and after it's live and it's already done, of course, you put it on a loop and you can sit there and loop this video, and it'll just sit there and play over and over again with no ads. So you can load up this video and Ethan's other video, and go through and listen. That way you can kind of get it and understand it. Because not only is it hard to find the time, it's kind of a pain in the butt reading it on the phone. So I figured I'd take that pain for everybody, and I'm going to start reading now. So this is the Maxims of Law. This is available on Ethan's page, oralhealthwithcannabis.com/services. It's the document. Scroll down on the page. It'll say law, and then it'll have a space and a dash, and it'll say Maxims. Download that copy. Take a look at it. If you got a reader on your phone, it helps because it'll highlight the word as it's reading it. You can slow the reading speed down. I use Microsoft or Office on my Android phone, so that's what I use, and it helps me out. So this is Maxims of Law, a preamble by Richard Anthony, and it says the maxims are the foundation of the laws of man relations. Commerce as a foundation is a part of a building, having their basis in God's law or God's laws, maxims of law. They are fundamental and immutable. No one of sound mind argues against maxims because they are the bedrock of logic, of reason, of common sense, of truth. The maxims are fundamental principles upon which all that is right, just, and true is founded, and are the standards to measure the correctness of any course or action. The word maxim is defined as an expression of an absolute truth or principle. Maxims are powerful and unequivocal that they are the foundation of all relationships between man and his fellow man. Maxims
Say that again, Josh. That's an important point.
Maxims are so powerful and unequivocal that they are the foundation of all relationships between man and his fellow man, or man and woman and his fellow man and woman. How are you?
There's a maxim for every situation, is what that's saying.
Yes, there is.
And in the absence of law, maxims rule.
That is absolutely true, as we will soon hear. Maxims have the power to cut to the heart of the matter in a heartbeat with reason, logic, and authority. Maxims correct every topic imaginable, maxims cover every topic imaginable and every aspect of lives of men. Maxims are not easily misunderstood, misapplied, or subverted. Maxims are universally accepted for what they are, self-evident truths. Maxims are considered the infallible emergency backup system when all else fails. Anyone who is not schooled in the logic of maxims is easily confused for the want of comprehension and understanding. The legal profession has a vested interest in keeping the people ignorant of these principles.
What system?
I'm sorry?
What system has an interest in keeping the people ignorant?
The legal profession. That would be your bar attorneys, judges, dare say,
county prosecuting attorneys?
Yeah, the administrative executive.
Goodness gracious.
Yes, sir.
No one ever told us. What do we get told every time we have a problem? You need an attorney.
That's right. So, once again, the legal profession has a vested interest. That means they are paid to make sure you don't know this stuff. But anyway, the legal profession has a vested interest in keeping the people ignorant of these principles, protecting the need for their arcane priestcraft. Okay? That is, priestcraft is the arcane craft of specialists always striving to create the illusion. There's that word, illusion. Fake. They are conjuring. This is witchcraft. They strive to create the illusion that their craft, witchcraft, is too complex to be understood by the uninitiated, by the goyim, by the smelly socks brigade.
Hold on, back up. The uninitiated. What that's referring to is being initiated into the bar. If you're not part of the club, you ain't part of the club.
That's right.
They don't go after each other. They come after us. And there's another reading that talks about how they bastardize the words. So you say, I do not consent. Well, they change that I to AYA, A, and that you do not consent. You're basically, they phonetically change that to you're claiming you're a criminal. So it's all witchcraft. It's all manipulation. It's all fiction. And it's all based upon a maxim of law that you can give up your authority. You can give up your power. You can surrender. And you've been trained from birth to give up your power, to trust these parasites. And so I just wanted to make that point about the initiated. So if you would back up, Josh, and read a few words and lead into that initiated point and then continue on with the reading. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Maxims are considered the infallible emergency backup system when all else fails. Anyone not schooled in the logic of maxims is easily confused for the want of comprehension and understanding. The legal profession has a vested interest in keeping the people ignorant of these principles, protecting the need for their arcane priestcraft. Priestcraft is the arcane craft of specialists always striving to create the illusion their craft is too complex to be understood by the uninitiated. It does not take a law degree to understand maxims. And that's the end of the preamble by Richard Anthony. The following is a selective collection of maxims of law by Court of Family Frenet for the enlightenment of all man. The word man refers to both man and woman of any age and is either singular or plural, and as the narrative logic indicates. Comments in brackets, blah, 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 I don't need to read that. Every wrongdoing against the temporal and spiritual property of another is a trespass. Okay? That means every wrongdoing against the temporal and spiritual property of another is a trespass, i.e., mask requirements, anything that goes against your God-given right. In accusative affidavits for creating and establishing enforceable commercial lien judgments, after listing all the claims, the wrongs the trespasser has committed against lowercase I include as a claim in the preamble immediately preceding maxims of law to define the law to the wrongdoer, and as a long-range cryptic message to the law judge. When establishing a lawful enforceable commercial lien non-judicial judgment against someone, one is supposed notice the wronged, and it says this is done by including the affidavit with 10 basic maxims of commerce pertaining to affidavit warfare. One maxim of law and warfare states one is not bound to arm an opponent. That this is why one should never talk to a police officer. However, lowercase I, randomly sprinkled 10 basic commercial maxims throughout a myriad of maxims of law. If the wrongdoer cannot figure out and does not comprehend law or maxims of law, tough titty, shouldn't have started a war against I. By stating and clarifying law via maxims of law, one is also sending a cryptic message to the judge that one knows the law, and he, the judge, will also get his ass nailed and screwed. And
Josh, what's he talking about there? He's talking about with the affidavit with the court proceeding, right?
Yeah, he's saying so when you go after somebody and you're making an an accusation against somebody via affidavit, that you're supposed to pick and sprinkle out throughout your document 10 maxims of law. One example that he just used was no man is bound to arm another or his opponent, right?
Right.
So there are several other ones that we're about to get to, but that's a really good point that you stopped me and said that, because that basically sends a cryptic message to, number one, the guy that you're going up against, letting him know that, hey, I know the law. And number two, it lets the judge, the prosecutor, his attorney know that, hey, this guy just straight called you out, and if you do nothing, he wins. And if you do answer him, he wins. So, depending on how you, because as Ethan has stated multiple times, not all affidavits are created equal. So, by understanding these maxims of law and how to use them, how to incorporate them into and facilitate them into your affidavit,
into your court case.
Yes, sir.
Not in their fiction, not in their de facto, not in their illusionary world of assumptions and presumptions, but in a court of law. An open court of law.
Yes, sir. And it's very important that everybody understands that this is how you do it. This is what makes your affidavit so powerful. This is the secret. Everybody's like, I don't understand. You just say these words and that's it. Well, you got to understand that words matter. And not all affidavits created equal. And I can't, and Ethan can't make you free. You have to invest a little bit of, memory into remembering some of this stuff, because it's very hard to say, let me show you this, or let me go get this for you. You see what I'm saying? Like Ethan says, or
knowledge is power. And
yes.
So,
and words mean something.
And when you have the knowledge, no one can take that away from you. And I want to clarify what Josh was just talking about, sprinkling these maxims in. This is, in my mind, is more related to somebody who is trapped in the fiction courts, because all of my cases that I won, I wasn't dealing with sprinkling in maxims of law. However, in my recent court cases, I do a little bit more than sprinkle them in. I rail it, and I attach the entire reading that Josh is looking at as an exhibit. So, at any rate, go ahead, Josh.
Man. You didn't, you didn't sprinkle anything.
No.
That's funny.
And all affidavits are not created equal. There's some very important aspects to realize. An affidavit, a contract, and change of terms when you're dealing with your servants. The verification and notary as jurat certificate, and your standing. Your language in there has got to be spot on. You don't want to be trapped in the United States. You don't want to be making your affidavit in the United States a foreign land, 10 square miles. So not all affidavits are created equal. And certainly there's a big difference between a lawful court and an unlawful court. And all these legal courts are unlawful because they're trespassing upon all of us day and night. That's their job. So go ahead, Josh. Continue on, brother.
All right. Get back to where I was here. All right. By stating and clarifying, and I'm backing up, I think, just a little bit. By stating and clarifying via maxims of law, one is sending a cryptic message to the judge. Okay, that went back too far. A judge who refuses filing a properly established commercial lien judgment into the court system commits numerous offenses such as malfeasance in public office, perjury, payroll fraud, false misrepresentation, gross negligence, neglect of judicial office, unlawful discrimination, misprision of felony, to name just a few wrongs that will get a judge's exhaust finger whistling and winking with right. I love that part.
Can say that again? Get a judge's exhaust sphincter doing what?
Oh man, I want to read that again, man. Gross negligence, neglect of judicial office, unlawful discrimination, misprision of felony, just to name a few wrongs that will get a judge's exhaust finger winking and whistling with fright. Keep in mind, the letter I, the lowercase I, as shown, it is correct, not in error. Capitalize a I, which is a lowercase I, to capitalize a lowercase I, is one removes one's head and one's ID. Entity. ID equals self plus entity. Judges and lawyers are taught and are well versed in the arcane etymology behind their Babylonian babble. We just heard Mark Christopher talk about that a little bit, didn't we?
Yeah, he talked about the reason they wear the wigs. Do you remember what he said about that, Josh? What did he say about why they wear the wigs?
Oh, Ethan, you're putting me on the spot, and I'm
okay.
I already got a spot in my eyes.
What he was saying was it was to hide their evil thoughts from the Lord.
That's right. Thank you.
Ah!
I've been listening, man, but I'm sitting here keeping my place, man. I can't do like 10 things at once. All right. And I lost my place. Darn it.
That's all right. Take your time, brother. Take your time.
Okay. Judges and lawyers are taught and are well versed in arcane etymology behind their Babylonian babble, confusing the unwitting common man. The elites disparagingly refer to as uninitiates, mundanes, profane, Goyim, Smelly Socks Brigade. The capital I has no head, as in a decapitated body, a body with its head removed by capital punishment. Anyway, after listing in one's affidavit all one's claims of wrongs, trespasses committed against thyself by the wrongdoer, trespasser, the following is added to the affidavit to be followed by lawfully enforceable, tacitly procured agreements and tacitly procured contracts created by default by failure to rebut at law. It is all there in the following maxims of law. In passing, never quote legal maxims. Law and legislation are diametrically opposed, are two different jurisdictions conflicting and at war with the other.
So is that saying that in the legal they will not quote a maxim?
Basically, that's saying that your lawful is against legislation because legislation is statute. That's why they're two different jurisdictions, and they're conflicting and at war with each other. Law deals with truth. Legislation is the lawyer's Babylonian, Talmudic, psychopathic world of legal fictions.
Amen.
And legal deceptions.
Assumptions and presumptions.
Yes, sir.
And you've been dumbed down to be a slave. Give up your rights and walk right into their trap. You need an attorney. You need an attorney.
all highly treasonous.
Yes, it is. You think we can get our sheriffs to understand that? They spend all their time getting advised by the enemy, putting their deputies in those administrative courts.
That's what we aim to fix. And, we have to, like Sean said, we have to do it. And there's several other people that I hear say this. You have to, you can't just say you're unhappy. Have you taken the steps needed to take? No, you haven't, because you didn't know the steps needed to take. Now we're learning the steps needed to take. So now that you know that, step 2 is correcting that and start doing it.
And we got a standing army getting ready to roll across the nation to go to a foreign land, 10 square miles, known as D.C., to honk their horns and protest the enemy. Is that how you win a war, Josh?
No, sir. No, sir. You have to assemble. We all have to assemble and talk about the problems and come together and correct it through remonstrance.
And who's the most powerful law enforcer on the land?
The people.
Underneath the people. Who's our elected most powerful law enforcer?
The sheriff. The sheriff's over the FBI, DEA, ATF, ICE, all of them. And the sheriff is the highest law enforcement of the land, period.
And so what's the reason that the sheriff spends all his time with the enemy trespassing upon us?
I have no idea. Satan?
Well, yeah, this evil has usurped everything. It's usurped our judicial. It's usurped our legislative. It's usurped our law enforcement. It's usurped our education. It's usurped our medicine, our food. It's usurped everything. It is a parasitic vampire on all that's good. And it's been in control for too long. However, this is just like the story of the Wizard of Oz. And we've been down the yellow brick road, and we pull back the curtain, and we see it's just some squirrely little parasite that has no power and no authority when you own your own and you stand in it. So let's carry on with some reading there, Josh.
All right. Let's see. Okay, so legislation. Okay, wait. Here we go. I'm gonna back up a little bit more. Law and legislation are diametrically opposed. Are two different jurisdictions conflicting and at war with the other. Law deals with truth. Legislation is the lawyer's Babylonian, Talmudic, psychopathic world of legal fictions and legal deceptions, all highly treasonous and all highly dangerous to man, and is the same criminally insane world of all police officers, from pseudo chief constables, which there are constables here in America too, like down in Alabama.
You know what, Josh? I've been thinking that one of the things that has yet to be prepared is a delivery from me to these sheriffs with regards to education, and not just telling them about their duty and the oath they swore and the Constitution, but giving them some education. And what you just read there, the last few minutes of conversation, I think is going to be a key component of the delivery that I'm going to ultimately be delivering. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very important point.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no. Thanks for making your point, brother. It's all right. I understand. I'm here with you. So, all right. So let's see. All highly treasonous and all highly dangerous to man, and is the same criminally insane world of all police officers, from pseudo chief constables to the lowest rankers, who are all deliberately handpicked for low intelligence and psychopathic tendencies. any applicant having a high IQ and showing integrity.
I want to stop you there.
Honesty.
I want to stop you there for a minute. What he's reading is another man's opinion.
Yes, it is.
This is not what Josh is saying. This is not what I'm saying. However, I do have some commentary on that. I have had exchanges with those who have applied for positions in law enforcement, those who have been in positions of law enforcement, either de facto or lawful. And it is made clear that the mentality that they want are those that are going to follow orders. And, for lack of better terms, those are that are knuckle draggers. They like to throw their weight around. And so that's what Josh just read was another man's opinion. But the fact of the matter is, it does appear that there is some type of indoctrination, certain type of individuals that are recruited for that job.
Yeah, see, now I want to jump in there as well. Now, I've got family that is in law enforcement, and, one of them ran for sheriff, and, I've got respect for law enforcement. My family is in it, and I'm not out here running my mouth or anything. I think about 80% of these people will listen. There are going to be some that they're
what people? 80% of what people?
80% of the law enforcement.
Oh, right on.
80% of the law enforcement will listen, and they genuinely do not know because they were not trained in the academy. They hold their hand up and they swear an oath to defend the state constitution of the United States, but all they were ever in the academy was in statute. And as you're about to hear, statute is not law. As you clearly heard, legal is fiction, is fictitious, is fake, is fraud, is fraud, is fraud, is fraud, is fraud, is fraud, is fraud. Okay? And anything that comes from a fraudulent statute is void at conception. That means it was never legal.
Is that a maxim?
That is a maxim, I believe.
Sure sounds like one.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? All right, so I'm going to go back into this thing because I want you all to hear this man's opinion, because it does exist out there. And though it is an opinion of the author, I am going to read it because it does exist, and they need to hear it. That way, we can get the law enforcement's help in cleaning that out of there as well. Have our brothers and sisters in law enforcement help us identify the ones that are like this. Do you see what I'm saying? That is the purpose for everybody being on the same page and knowing that it does exist. Otherwise, you're just an ostrich with your head in the sand. So, let's say all highly treasonous and all highly dangerous to man and is the same criminally insane world of all police officers, from pseudo chief constables to the lowest rankers, who are all deliberately handpicked for low intelligence and psychopathic tendencies. Any applicant having a high IQ and showing integrity and honesty and empathy for their fellow man cannot become a police force officer. And once again, that was just the opinion of the author. And I read it because it's there. So it says law and maxims of law. The lowercase I starts out, I also claim the following laws and maxims of law to be eternal truths that apply to all man of any age, including the treasonous wrongdoer. Name wrongdoer without any prefixed legal fiction titles. Oh, I just understood that for the first time. See, that's what it pays to read stuff again. I always thought I was supposed to identify them as a captain or a chief of police. Turns out it says right here to name them without any prefix, so I'll have to go back through that and add that to my notes.
Well,
But anyway,
when you send your affidavit, it's to the man, right?
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
So that's what he's saying. So you did know that, and then where there is a title associated with that man, we also identify that as well, and yet we have since reviewing the document that you're reading or listening to somebody somewhere, we picked up along the way that acting as such and such, acting as chief of police. So your address is to the man.
It says here.
And the respondent is the man. And so is that right, Josh?
Yes, and it says acting the role of state legal fiction title. So they're yeah.
So you could say acting as chief of police.
Exactly.
Acting
in
in
the main document, it goes after their name.
Yeah, correct.
Not the chief of police.
Right, but if he is the chief of police, and
you got to put his name, just not chief of police. You got to put his name and chief of police.
Yeah, that's a separate part of the page, and but yet instead of just saying chief of police, saying acting as, or you can use the author's language verbatim, which Josh will read that again.
It says, name wrongdoer without any prefixed legal fiction titles. Example, Lord, Lady, Judge, Archbishop, Captain, Constable, Police Constable, Police Officer, Mr., Mrs., etc. John Henry. An example is John Henry. And then it says acting the role of, and then it would be your title. So it would be acting the role of police officer badge number 134, or Kevin Furr, chief of police. You see what I'm saying? You get where I'm going with that.
Yep.
And
another thing that I do is where it's addressing to, we also put in AKA. So sometimes these parasites on their website, it'll be a first name, middle name, or middle initial and a last name. And on their business card, it won't be, or it's the other way around. In some cases, you'll see it's all caps. In some places, you'll see it's printed out or written out the way that it should be. Nonfiction. And exactly. So I'll put in the AKAs as well underneath who it's addressed to. But in the respondent is just the man. It's addressed to the man, and then everything else is AKA, also known as. But I go ahead and put those in my documents too.
Well, listen, I'd put acting the role of now, because after watching
that goes there too.
Right.
But that goes with the title. I'm just talking.
Right.
Just talking about in the address to section.
Oh.
So
okay.
So right underneath the name, then there'd be another name. It'd be all caps, and then there might be another name that's got a middle initial that's not in the or a middle just a different. So the more you can call it out, and the more you can have it detailed, the better. But the point is, you're addressing it to the man, and you're never recognizing their position because they're acting in a fraud.
Yes, sir. And also the reason for the name, and it's important how the name. It's like Ethan just said. I gotta explain this because I'm telling you guys and how I see it. I've got to let you know. It's not. It gives an example of John Henry, and it shows. It doesn't show it all capital. It shows only the first letter of John is capital, and then the rest is lowercase, and then first letter H for Henry is capital, and then the rest is lowercase. And it says and then it says acting the role of their title, their fictitious title, their legal fiction title, and it says this drags and forces the wrongdoer out of the Vatican Crown Admiralty jurisdiction. Now, I would have thought that was English common law, or the Crown, something that didn't apply to our common law. But after watching Mark Christopher's thing, and then also the war castles and everything, understanding all that absolutely does make sense, and it does apply, and that's why it's so powerful. But it says it forces and drags the wrongdoer out of the Vatican Crown Admiralty jurisdiction and rams the wrongdoer into the reality of the natural common law of the land jurisdiction, the deadly playground of the common man who knows his inherent, unalienable, natural rights and how to raise his own court de jure, and how to raise / invoke the court of Queen's Bench proper, which it may be getting into the.
What's the definition? What's the definition of de jure, Josh?
You see, here and now into your court.
See, this word is thrown around a lot, and it's not understood.
I don't want to misquote it. Please speak. Yeah. I think I already misquoted it.
Yeah, it's not understood. De jure is lawful. De facto is unlawful. De facto is fiction.
Copy that. Thank you, Ethan.
Amen, brother. So,
thank you.
So anytime, people are talking de jure and de facto, that's in essence what they're saying. But I believe that a lot of people are throwing those words around because they've heard them and they're repeating somebody else, but they haven't learned. They don't have the education. And anytime you want to push forward with words that are powerful, and somebody realizes you don't know what you're talking about, you're done, because they are quick-witted individuals, and they will just eat you up and spit you out. So knowledge is power.
Yes, it is.
All right. Go on, Josh. Keep on reading, brother.
I don't want to continue with the bottom of this if you're following along with me, because I don't want to get this video flagged.
Right on.
So I'm gonna stop. Here we'll go Queen's Bench proper, not the Queen's Bench branch division or bench division. I'm sorry. The latter, a legal construct operating in the admiralty jurisdiction of the Vatican Crown, a genocidal foreign enemy power that has been waging a centuries-old, undeclared, devious, asymmetrical, genocidal, mixed logic war against the common folk of England, Wales, Scotland, and other nation people with the Vatican Crown and other infected occupied governments. I'll just leave it at that. And then it says, okay, here we go. Yea, the law of God and the natural law of the land and the common law are one and the same. Once again, the law of God and the natural law of the land and the common law are one and the same. The law of God law cannot be affected, degraded, amended, voided. See Deuteronomy 12:32. Whatever I command thee, ye shall not add to nor take away from it. Man and land, earth, soil are one. The common law of the land is the perfection of reason. The common law of the land is above government. I'm going to read that one again. The common law of the land is the perfection of reason. The common law of the land is above government.
I want to explain that. I want to explain that. Why that is. You see, we here in America, our common law is derived from natural law, the highest law. Then we got the people, and we're under God's law, natural law, and we're going to make a free government. And that free government is based on a constitution that was created in compact, that is a trust indenture. It is a contract. And it is all, they were all based on natural law, which is common law. Now, you can have different realms of history with common law.
Explain that. Are you talking like the law of nations?
Well, you have, I think, Roman common law. You have the crown common law. There's different common laws throughout history. So the true common law is what you have read there. Read that again. Natural law is common law. Did it say God's law, natural law, common law, all the same?
The common law of the land is the perfection of reason. The common law of the land is above government. The law of God and the natural law of the land and the common law are one and the same. That's what she was looking for.
Yep.
The law of God law cannot be affected, degraded, amended, voided. Deuteronomy 12:32. Whatever I command thee, ye shall not add to nor take away from it. Man and land, earth and soil are one. Do you want me to stop? You want to expound on the law of God and the natural law of the land and the common law are one and the same?
Well, that's how our states' constitutions were drafted, from the best of my ability to discern it. And they were done in compact. Now, maybe not all of them were done in compact. This nation didn't develop overnight. It was a process. And so some great learning and great knowledge has come my way here recently that I'm in the process of absorbing to be able to use powerfully. Knowledge is power. And so it's this simple. So we the people come together to form a government. Well, if you have to have a population, and you form a social compact. The social compact has to be in place before you can create your nation. So you'll read in several of the states' constitutions that are in the 48 love letters, the document titled 48 love letters, it's 48 states' constitutions, on the services page of the website. You'll read in there that the Constitution, that state constitution, was formed in compact. So I did a talk recently about compact, or no, there's no compact. What's all the fuss? Well, I understand what the fuss is about, and so the current U.S. Constitution was not facilitated in compact, and previous constitutions have similar issues, and so I'm not prepared to rattle off the date and which constitution and what and where and why, but that's all well documented and something I'm going to be able to talk about more a bit later. Um, so a compact is a contract, but you can't. But the a compact has got to come before uh, uh, because the compact establishes a population, and there's a little bit more to it, and there's international law that applies here. So creating your social compact and your nation to an understanding of international law is a critical component. And that's about as much as I can say on the subject at the moment. So if you're ready, Josh, go ahead and read a little bit more.
All right. So the common law of the land is above government. The law is from the everlasting. The law of nature is unchanging. That's another one people need to read. The law of nature is unchanging. All are equal under God. All are equal under the law. It is self-evident that all men have equal, absolute, inalienable rights endowed by their Creator. One cannot serve both God and mammon. Matthew 6:4. One cannot serve two masters. Matthew 6:4. The created cannot be greater than the Creator. The law is harsh, but that is the law. Ignorance of the law is not a defense and is no excuse. Maxims of law are foundations of law. Maxims of law are based on God's laws, therefore are fundamental and immutable. Remove the foundation and all falls. Luke 6:48. All claims fail without foundation. That's why it is so very important to learn these maxims and understand and listen. If you can't take time to read, I hope people will listen to this video. We are all servants of the law, not the statutes. Courts, whether of the king or of the people or of the parliament, are established not by written law, but by common law. Tyranny begins where law ends. Custom is observed for law. A traitor is punished by the death of one, all may not perish. Survival, self-preservation, is the first law of nature. Survival.
All right, hold on there, Josh. That's so important today. We don't have justice, and we need to have justice. Those that are criminals that have committed treason and will not repent, they're bound and determined to continue on their way. They got to be dealt with for their safety and ours. Those who have been MK Ultra'd, manipulated, want to come to Jesus, they're not in the court right now, is a good time to make that move. I'm going to put 81 of them in court. Cases are already facilitated. They just need to be served. But we're going to get law enforcement. And this is an appeal to the truckers. Do not do it. Don't make that mistake. Do not drive to that foreign land to protest to the enemy. Deal where your power is. That's freelance truckers that are making that move. There's other truckers that don't have that option. They can be very powerful too.
Yes.
Possibly they get a cold or twist an ankle or something keeps them from coming to work for a week. Two very powerful options that these truckers have, and they can help deliver the message to the sheriffs that we got their backs, that the American people have their backs, and that we need them to have our back, and we'll just, through the education that we're delivering here, that and a little bit more, maybe a bunch more, we'll deliver the message to these men.
That's right. And the reason, and I'm about to read this right here, and I just want to chime in right now with you, Ethan, is, we're in a very, very unique time in history where everybody's waking up to realize that we right now are in default. We are in default of law. Okay? We do not have law right now. What we have is statutes, and no Republican form of government. You know what I'm saying? We've got all this bad stuff happening, and right here it says, that all claims fell without foundation. In default of law, the Maxims rule.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why this is important. This is so important that is because right now you are in fact living in a default of law. And this is why this is so important. That's why this is so powerful to include these maxims in your affidavit. This is why Ethan has put this on his page. It is very powerful.
It is. Knowledge is power.
So, I'm going to continue on reading then, unless you got anything else you want to expand on, Ethan?
Nope. Let her rip, Josh. Bring it on.
All right. We are all servants of the law. Courts, whether of the king, of the people, or of parliament, are established not by written law, but by common law. Tyranny begins where law ends. Custom is observed for law. A traitor is punished by the death of one. All may not perish. I already read these, but I'll go back over them.
That's an important one, though.
Self-preservation is the first law of nature. Survival, self-preservation is the first right of man. The first right of man is to defend himself and his property, both temporal, spiritual. Your kids, your kids are your property. Your wife is your property. You are your wife's property. No man is bound to arm his opponent. There's that one maxim
Josh,
that guy left.
Josh,
yeah, go ahead.
We got a comment here, and I know this gentleman, and he says, I think the maxims state there is no such thing as justice. He's got it in quotes, Justice. He says that I believe is their lie. There is the law, and that is all. Violation and breach of law demands restitution, not justice. And he's got it spelled the same way in quotes. And then, or and in quotes, just, Just, space, capital US. So there's
Sounds
word.
like he's agreeing with us.
Say again?
Sounds like he's agreeing with us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so there's word manipulation that goes on. And so I don't know. He says, I think the maxim state there is no such thing as justice.
Find it, brother. Find it and post it in the Telegram group. I recognize you from Telegram. So find that maxim and post it in there so we can learn that. Show us. You know what I'm saying?
Right on.
If you don't mind.
We're all about knowing, not being confused.
Right.
Confusion causes fear, and fear causes paralyzation. And the Lions got to put that all in their back pocket.
That's right. All right. So no man is bound to arm his opponent. No one may make a claim in the name of another. No man has a right not to be offended. Property is what is proper to man, exclusive of all others in the universe. No man has a right to take the property of another without the free will consent of the owner. He who makes owns. Rights come from God. Privileges come from man. Rights come from the everlasting Creator. Privileges come from man. Nothing is unchangeable but the inherent and non-alienable rights of man. Nothing is unchangeable but the inherent and non-alienable rights of man. Rights cannot be taxed. You hear that, everybody? Your rights can't be taxed. Rights never die. He who uses his rights harms no one.
Does that mean when I want to get in my I'll call it what it is, automobile, car, truck, motorcycle, vehicle, personal conveyance, my property, and travel the roads freely, I can do that without a tax, like a registration or a license plate or a tab.
So the government gets to go without having their plates. They get exempt on their plates, right? Because they're handling the people's business.
My.
But what about when the people are handling the people's business? Huh?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? All these police cars driving around, all these road pirates driving around right now, and they've got exempt on their tags, right? They're exempt. They don't even have to pay because they're handling the people's business, right? Locking us up and pulling us over and taking our money.
All without a warrant, and all because we've been so dumbed down to take it.
Exactly, all because of the mind control ultra. Growing up watching Cops on TV, on your network TV. It was always on Fox or, whatever, at night, over-the-air TV, way back in the day before internet.
Yeah, and there was an FBI show, too, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, well, what about America's Most Wanted? Look at that creepster. You should look into what his daughter says about him. What is his name? John Walsh. Yeah, that's some funny, interesting information if you ever want to research that one. But I think I'm getting a little off topic. But you see what I'm saying? Yeah, it's yeah.
So, anyways, we got a comment back about the justice thing. So that's just my words. So he says, what did he say? He says, no. I am suggesting I do not see justice in any of the maxims. Maybe I missed it, ? And then he says, they seek to justify their BS, fraud, and trickery and arguments of presumptions and assumptions. And hello, Maiden, Texas. I'm glad to see you here, brother. Um, and then he goes on to say all programming, and then he says John Walsh was an actor who sacrificed own son for fame and fortune. So,
yeah, he said it. He said it.
I read it. Anyways,
all right.
We've just been so dumbed down in evil that was probably established and all planned out with the last reset. You start out with those that don't know nothing and do nothing but lie to them their whole life, and generation after generation after generation, this is what you get.
Exactly. Not understanding your statutes don't apply to you. Look at this. This next one. Remember I said he who uses his rights harms no one? Well, a right cannot arise from a wrong. Okay, so you've got all these wrong statutes out there, okay, that are, what's the word I'm looking for? They're repugnant to your natural rights, right? Your common law rights. They're
unlawful.
Huh?
They're unlawful. Hey, Matt Roach, much love, brother.
Yes, they are unlawful. Right?
Absolutely.
So a right cannot come from that because that is wrong. Rights abused still remain rights, okay? And a right cannot be converted into a crime. No man may be charged for exercising a right. No man has a right to deny or trespass on the equal rights of another man. No man has a right to permit another man to act outside the law. Statutes are not law, and no act statute as law is valid if it waives a fundamental right in order to comply with the demands of something called the state.
And
once again,
I want you to read that whole thing again, but this is why UCC 1-308 exists. That's Uniform Commercial Code.
Rights without prejudice.
It means privileges without penalties. And so you can make a statement underneath your signature, which you really shouldn't be making a signature unless you're in commerce. You make an autograph, but everybody's got a signature line on their operator's license. So underneath that, you can make a statement. All rights reserved, UCC 1-308, without prejudice pursuant to UCC 1-308. And do that before you ever have an incident, and they'll just bounce you right out of that administrative court. But who's teaching you that? Who's explaining it to you? What did it say? It's not in there. It's not in whose interest to be teaching what, Josh? It's not in the legal profession's business to be teaching us our common law rights. Oh, to be teaching maxims. That's what it was specifically. The legal system is not in there. What was maybe more than not in their interest. They're just not going to tell you.
Yeah, no, they don't. They are protecting their. They called it priestcraft, which is witchcraft. It is everything that everything that you did not know. That's why Ethan's told you. That's why you appear before them, because you are a dead entity to them, and that's all kinds of stuff that you never knew. But
we're learning now.
Yes, sir. See, a right cannot be converted into a crime. No no man may be charged for exercising a right. No man has a right to deny or trespass on the equal rights of another man. No man has a right to permit another man to act outside the law. Statutes are not.
Wait, whoa. Back up. Read that one again. No man has a right to what? Let another man
has a right to permit another man to act outside the law.
Whoa! And what are we doing?
We're waking up the sheriffs right now because that's what they doing.
That's what they doing. That's what the undersheriff's doing. That's what the deputies are doing. That's what the jail sergeant's doing.
I was just following orders is not an excuse. Ignorance is no excuse for the law either.
Is that a maxim? Is that a maxim? Josh Eddie? Holy fright. Read that one again, brother.
No man has a right to permit another man to act outside the law. Statutes are not law, and no act statute as law is valid if it waives a fundamental right in order to comply with the demands of something called the state. So let me explain that for you people. All your state constitutions that say you have the right to privacy, your right to private affairs without being disturbed, without due process of law, right there, they come through with a statute and says, oh, you were speeding. You broke this statute, RCW 46-61, blah, 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 right? But it clearly says statutes are not law, and no act statute as law is valid if it waives a fundamental right in order to comply with the demands of something called the state.
Okay, but I want to add some clarity to this because that's is a convoluted explanation. What they're saying is your fiction, because they're going to write that. They're always your driver's license is all caps, and your signature is a fiction. Your birth certificate in all caps is a fiction, and they use their assumptions and presumptions to do everything they do based on these fictions. And you have never been taught the difference between you as a man, male or female, man or woman. You have not been educated that there's a difference between this phony, fake entity that has been created unlawfully and illegally because it's a contract that you had no knowledge and understanding of. And it's created by your parents' signature or autograph, not yours. And it's all because of the way the system is all manipulated to enslave us all. So technically, they're not coming after you. They've just got you brainwashed, MK Ultra'd, to be a slave to that fiction by not knowing the difference. I hope that adds some clarification to that. I think the dog understands. Dog's not happy. Josh?
Sorry, I got sidetracked for a second. I apologize. My daughter was texting me.
Oh, right on. So I hope that adds some clarification to that. You ready to get back to reading? Or are you still?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna go quiet the puppy down, and you continue reading. I'll be right back.
All right. No man may be charged for exercising a right. No man has a right to deny or trespass on the equal rights of another man. No man has a right to permit another man to act outside the law. Statutes are not law, and no act statuted as law is valid if it waives a fundamental right in order to comply with the demands of something called the state. A workman is worthy of his hire. It is unjust to allow some to merchandise and to prohibit others.
Okay, so from the comment earlier, so far that's the closest
Ding,
we've
ding,
got.
ding.
That's the closest we've got to justice, as far
Yes,
as
sir.
maxims go. To be unjust, which is if you get into the etymology of justice and so forth, and I bet you it's going to have a root of just somewhere in there.
All right. It is unjust to allow some to merchandise and to prohibit others. Might does not make right. That is MIGHT. Might does not make right. Where there is a right, there is a remedy. Wherever there is a wrong, their damages follow. No man shall act outside the law to uphold the law. So that's another one for the law enforcement. No man shall permit another man to act outside the law.
Right. So you have to follow. So you have to follow due process. In other words, you got to get that warrant from the jury. The grand jury has got to give the warrant to the sheriff. So let's just say something happens, and the claimant is at the sheriff's. Hasn't been to the grand jury. The sheriff can't act because that claimant is there with that claim. It's got to be a warrant come from the grand jury. You got a right to your privacy. You got a right to not be stopped. That warrant's got. Now, in the meantime, if let's say Joe is the claimant and Bob is the perpetrator, if Bob is disturbing the peace in any way, shape, or form, then it's the sheriff's duty to go deal with Bob, because the sheriff's obligation is peace officer. However, when some man makes a claim against another man, there's a process. And I believe that maxim you just read is what relates to that.
No man shall act outside the law to uphold the law.
Right. So the sheriff's got a process he's got to follow. So there's cases where that warrant is necessitated, and the sheriff cannot bypass that. So I believe that's the type of reference that maxim is referring to.
All right. No man shall permit another man to act outside the law. To deny or trespass on a right of another man is an act of war.
It is.
They who advocate pacifism in time of despotism, tyranny, and terrorism by government are traitors to man, liberty, and the law of the land. Malfeasance in public office is a tort. A tort is an act of war. A trespass is an act of war. Punish harshly a few to deter the many from doing wrong. To tell the truth is extreme. To tell less is to lie. Man has a right to kill an aggressor, though the ultimate intent of the aggressor is not to kill. The law of the land allows man to kill an aggressor, though the ultimate intent of the aggressor may not be to kill. Badges, symbols, and uniforms do not grant any extra rights nor reduce or overreach rights of man.
So
once again,
when what you said that you see, you can defend life and limb. You can defend your rights. You can defend all of them. And if the aggressor, his intention is not to kill you, but yet in your performance of defending yourself, he dies, that's law of nature. That's what that was saying. Doesn't mean that you know that the person's not there to kill you and you're going to intentionally kill them. If you can disable them another way, it's not an excuse for murder. It's not an excuse to take a life. It just is that you have the right to defend yourself. And if the other person, let's say he's got a weak heart, you know, that same action on a strong, healthy individual, and the person wouldn't die. But, you know, how are you to know? And they're the one who perpetrated it. You see? Does that kind of give some definition to that maxim?
Yeah, there was a case like that down south, actually.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Except they're never heard in a lawful court. They're always heard in a fiction.
Yes, sir. Or to make a public statement about it. Oh, one guy was black, and the other guy was white, and they're trying to race bait.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, absolutely. So
right. You still got quite a bit of reading to do there, I think, if we're going to go through the whole thing.
Thank you for reminding me. Let's see here. A trespass is an act of war. Let's see, where did I leave off? A man has a right to kill an aggressor, though the ultimate intent of the aggressor is not to kill. The law of the land allows man to kill an aggressor, though the ultimate intent of the aggressor may not be to kill. Badges, symbols, and uniforms do not grant extra rights nor reduce or overreach the rights of man. That means we the people have more power, and their rights as law enforcement do not overreach our rights as man. Badges, symbols, uniforms do not protect a wrongdoer from liability for harming another. Now, harming another, that can be anything from, hey, you made my kid put on a mask, you took my kid out of school because she wasn't wearing a mask, you pulled me over. That is harm. That is a trespass. Unless, somebody else sees it differently, I guess. But an office ought not be injurious. An office ought not be injurious to any man.
Injurious or injurious?
Injurious. INJURIOUS, to any man.
I'll have to look at that. I think that means to injure.
Okay, you go ahead and look that up.
Not now.
Okay.
Both of my devices are busy with you.
Okay.
And the people.
That which is inequitable is not law. That what goes against the mind is not law. The law is for all, or it is for none. No man is above the law. Do you hear that? Law enforcement? No man is above the law. Every man is independent of laws except those prescribed by nature. Who is God? The king monarch be so high, the law is above the king. The law is silent in time of war. The common law is superior to and overreaches statute law in every case. Once again, the common law is superior to and overreaches statute law in every case.
In every case.
In every case.
In every case.
Listen to this one. A statute should be harmonious with the common law.
They were at one point.
Well, we seek to aim to make them harmonious. Statutes are not law, and no act statuted as law is valid if it waives a fundamental right in order to comply with the demands of something called the state or government. There is no such thing as bad law, because if it is bad, it is not law. Man is not bound by any institution formed by another man without consent. Contract agreement makes the law. The agreement of the parties makes the law of the contract. The agreement of the parties overrides the law. Agreement gives the law to a contract. Consent makes the law. For joinder to be lawful, there must be free will, agreement, and free will consent of all the parties.
All right. So, what didn't you know about your birth certificate? What didn't you know about your driver's license? Read that one again, Josh. That's an important one. About the consent.
The agreement?
The agreement. Yep, the consent, the agreement. Read that again. Read that and not too fast. Give it a nice cadence. Not too slow.
All right. Contract agreement makes the law. The agreement of the parties makes the law of the contract. The agreement of the parties overrides the law.
All right. Break. The agreement of the parties overrides the law, the maxims of law, God's law. In contract, you can do this. The contract makes the law. Now, the rest of the reading is going to explain what invalidates said contract in a situation of. Go ahead, Josh.
Agreement gives the law to a contract. Consent makes the law.
Consent makes the law. If you didn't consent, didn't make the law. Who consented to the birth certificate?
I didn't.
Who consented to being confused with a fiction when you get an operator's license? When you're going to school, you're still in high school, and you go through driver's training, and you're trusting on the education system to educate you. And the tax dollars are paying for you to get that education. And did anybody tell you that you don't need that operator's license? That by putting your signature on there, that you're somehow engaged now in commerce and a contract? No, you see, which is all a fraud, which is all illegal. Anybody ever tell you that? Grandma and grandpa ever tell you that? Mom or dad, your teachers, your uncle, your best friend, the smartest guy you know? Anybody ever tell you that? No, we've all been tricked, brainwashed from day one. Go ahead and read that again, Josh. Start right from the very beginning of that, and I'll try and let you read through the whole thing.
A man is not bound by any institution formed by another man without consent. Contract agreement makes the law. The agreement of the parties makes the law of the contract. The agreement of the parties overrides the law. Agreement gives the law to a contract. Consent makes the law. For joinder to be lawful, there must be free will agreement and free will consent of all the parties.
Amen.
The common law will not allow a statute to be used as a cloak for fraud. Contempt of court is a creature of the common law. A statute is a contractual legal instrument of commerce. All statutes must be agreed upon. A statute, wait, I'm going to stop right there. If all statutes must be agreed upon, where's my signature or my autograph for the agreement that said I agreed to it? So, a statute needs consent to have the power of law. A statute contrary to common law is void at inception. Long use does not make lawful a void statute. A statute is private law. False spelling or false grammar does not vitiate an affidavit. So, whenever you're making your affidavits, understand that false spelling or false grammar does not vitiate that affidavit, okay? A privilege, as it were, a privilege, as it were, is a private law. Vain.
Hold on, no, Josh. See, what you just said, that in your affidavit, if your spelling is not correct or your grammar is not correct, it's not like you got to have every I dotted and every T crossed like these parasites tell you. And then they kick your case out. That's fiction. No, lawful is you're given your testimony under the penalty of perjury. So your testimony is critically important. And those that are hearing your testimony in a lawful proceeding want to know, what did you mean? What did you mean by that statement? You said this, that could mean this or it could mean that. Exactly what does that mean? That's what that's referring to. That's and so you want, if you're given some people don't have the ability to read and write throughout history. And we're graduating them like that today out of high school. So it's the truth is what is important. So if you're doing a written affidavit, you're writing your testimony down, obviously you want to do as good a job as you can. But those that are hearing it, they want to know, what are you saying exactly? Go ahead, Josh.
All right. Vain does he who offends against the law seek the help of the law. They who commit iniquity shall not receive equity. Sovereignty is the people, not the government. Man makes government. Therefore, man is higher than government. The government is subject to man and the law, because man and the law make government. The government cannot confer a power, nor a favor, nor a privilege which occasions injury or loss to others. Government is the servant of man. The first duty of government is to protect man and the property, both temporal and spiritual, of man. Government was not created to diminish nor destroy the property of man. The law is not to be trespassed upon by those in government. A government that enacts a statute contrary to the common law is an enemy at war with the people. Once again, a government that enacts a statute contrary to the common law is an enemy at war with the people. A government that enacts a statute trespassing on a right of man is an enemy at war with the people. The greatest enemies to man are unlawful force and wrong. Unlawful force and wrong are greatly contrary to peace.
Do you think we can get the sheriffs to understand this?
Well, they better. because they're in default, and in default, maxims rule. So force is incomable, amicable to law. Nothing is so contrary to consent as force and fear, says constructive force. No man shall be taken by force from his house to be conducted before a judge. A wrongdoer puts himself beyond the protection of the law and deserves no mercy from anyone, least of all from his victim. Man has a right to take up and use arms against the armed aggressor. Ignorance of the law does not excuse misconduct by anyone, least of all a sworn officer of the law. So that means every law enforcement officer that held their hand up and swore an oath to defend the Michigan state, the Washington state, every state constitution that they held their hand up in and swore that oath, plus the United States Constitution. Yeah, ignorance is no excuse for you not knowing your job, you not understanding this. No, ignorance of facts excuses ignorance of law does not. The law punishes falsehoods. Where damages are given, the losing party should pay the cost of the victor. He who acts through another acts for himself. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not speak falsely before the king, nor before the judge, nor in the assembly of the princes, nor in the presence of the ruler, nor unto the minister of the law, nor among the multitude, nor in the end of thy friend, nor to thy wife, nor to thy child, nor to thy servant. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not trespass upon anything that is thy neighbor's, to take it from him, nor destroy it. Neither shalt thou trespass upon the stranger that dwelleth within thy gates to destroy his substance, nor take it from him. For to thee he looketh for justice. There's that word right there.
All right. Found it.
There we go. For to thee he looketh for justice, and a shield round about all that he hath. And the fear of the Lord thy God is upon him also.
A shield around all that he got. A shield around him, all that he got.
Yeah. Neither shalt thou overreach him by cunning, nor by stratagem to take his substance from thy neighbor, nor the stranger within thy gates. Remember that ye were strangers and were oppressed, and oppress not the stranger, lest his cry ascend to God against you. The inhabitation of each man is an inviolable asylum for him. The poorest man may in his cottage bid defiance to all the forces of the crown. It may be frail, his roof may shake, the wind may blow through it, the storm may enter, the rain may enter, but the King of England cannot enter. All his force dares not cross the threshold of the ruined tenement. Legal is not reality. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm gonna skip over 2 paragraphs so I can get back down under the meat and potatoes here. Legality is not reality. Legality is fiction. Where truth is, fiction of law does not exist. Fiction of law is wrongful when it works loss or injury to any man. Legal fiction is wrongful when it works loss or injury to any man. A legal fiction is bound by legislation and statutory duties. Man is not. Trademarks cannot sue, nor be sued. Corporations, being legal fictions, do not work loss or injury to any man. It is man, often in the name of a legal fiction, who works loss or injury to man. Legal fiction is legal fraud. A claim made in the name of a fictitious plaintiff is a contempt of court. Reference Black's Law Dictionary editions 4th, 5th, and 6th. Later editions are corrupted by misinformation and political correctness and giving legal fictions greater importance than they have at law proper. Fiction is fiction is fiction is fiction ad infinitum. Fraud is fraud is fraud ad infinitum. Gross negligence is a fault. Gross fault is a fraud. A right of action cannot arise out of fraud. No one acquires a right of action through his own fraud. Fraud vitiates a contract. Fraud voids a contract. Fraud vitiates the most solemn promise. Injury caused by intentional misrepresentation or concealing facts which are bound by duty or required is fraud. Deceit is an artifice, since it pretends one thing and does another. He is not to be heard who alleges things contradictory to each other. False in one, false in all. Once a fraud, always a fraud. Once a knave, always a knave. It is a fault for a man not to know his everyday job, Mr. Law Enforcement or Mrs. Law Enforcement. It is a fault for a man not to know his everyday job. A concealed fault is equal to a deceit. It is a fraud to conceal a fraud. A fraud, though null and void, is valid against the defrauders. It is a fraud to take emolument for inferior work done. He who does an action, though another is adjudged in law to do it himself. He who does an action.
Oh, say that again. Say that one again.
Yeah, I messed up. He who does an action through another. Hold on a second. The screen popped off.
That happens.
Oh, dang it.
What you're saying is you do the action through that of another, you're guilty. That's the maxim. And he lost his place on.
Yep, he who does an action through another is adjudged in law to do it himself.
So you hire someone to do your dirty work for you, and they do the dirty work. It's as if you did it yourself. Period.
Yeah, he who does an action through another is adjudged in law to do it himself. He who conceals treason commits treason.
Whoa!
Yes, sir. He who conceals treason commits treason.
And it's unlawful to let. And it's unlawful to let another man do an unlawful act.
Yeah. It is a crime to conceal a crime. Right there, back to back. He who conceals treason commits treason. It is treason to conceal treason. It is a crime to conceal a crime. He who conceals a fraud perpetrates a fraud himself. Gross negligence is equivalent to fraud. Hear that, Sheriff? Out of fraud, no action arises. No document is a fraud because it is what it is.
Well, right now I'm hoping that the truckers are.
Off.
I'm hoping the truckers are listening too.
Yeah, it is the passing off of a document as something that it is not. That constitutes the act of fraud. He who errs does not consent. To lie is to go against the mind. Concealment of the truth is equivalent to a statement of what is false. Suppression of fact, which should have been disclosed, is the same, in effect, as with willful misrepresentation. The multitude of error is no excuse for error. No man can give to another more than he himself has. No man has a right not to be offended. No man is considered as committing damage unless he is doing what he has no right to do. No man shall take advantage of his own wrong. No man ought to derive any benefit out of his own wrong. No man ought to benefit by another man's loss. No man ought to gain by another man's ignorance. No man ought to enrich
whoa.
at the expense of others.
I like that one. No man should benefit from another man's ignorance. Yet there's
attorneys.
There's a maxim that says ignorance is no excuse. And does it say more than that? Does it pertain to law? That's interesting. Put those two together. Please read that. Please read that one again, Josh.
No man shall take advantage of his own wrong. No man ought to derive any benefit from his own wrong. No man ought to benefit by another man's loss. No man ought to gain by another man's ignorance.
Right, that one right there.
No man ought to enrich himself at the expense of others. No man shall improve his condition by crime. It is disgraceful for a man to be ignorant of that which he is daily engaged, Mr. Law Enforcement, Mrs. Law Enforcement Officer. It is disgraceful for a man to be ignorant of that which he is daily engaged. He who acts badly hates the light. Each jurisdiction has its own court. Each office has its own jurisdiction. Every jurisdiction has its own bounds. Two states cannot operate in the same jurisdictions. Two jurisdictions cannot operate in the same state. The order of things is confounded when everyone preserves not his jurisdiction. Dissimilar things ought not be joined. Corinthians 26:14. Truth may be forgotten, but remains the truth. In commerce, truth is supreme. Truth stands supreme. Truth affects, but is not affected. Truth fears not investigation. Truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. An affidavit is a law between the parties. An affidavit is a court. punishment is due if the words of an oath be false. No one is believed in court but upon his oath. An affidavit is indivisible. It cannot be held partly true and partly false. Every oath ought to be founded on certain knowledge. An infamous person is repelled or prevented from taking an oath. A crime is neither diminished nor expunged by passing time. Let a man be punished when he commits the offense. Free men have arms, slaves do not. Sir William Blackstone. Justice of the King's Bench, Justice of the Common Pleas, Jurist, author of Commentaries of the Laws of England. No man gives what he does not have. Honesty is the foundation of wisdom. No man shall be a judge in his own case. One cannot be judge and party. Judge thyself before judging others. He who wishes to control others ought first learn to control himself. Not to believe rashly is the nerve of wisdom. An act done against my will is not my act. Not every submission is a consent. When the proof of facts are present, what need is there of words? No man can make a claim in the name of another. No claim is given to one who has received no harm or no loss. Facts are more powerful than words. Callousness betokens villainy. Villainy betokens callousness. While a crime remains unpunished, the world remains unbalanced. Claims made in an affidavit, if not rebutted, emerge as the truth of the matter. I'm going to read that one again. Claims made in an affidavit, if not rebutted, emerge as the truth of the matter. Intent makes the instrument. The intention of the party is the soul of the instrument. An unrebutted affidavit becomes the judgment in law. An affidavit must be rebutted line by line, in substance, by affidavit. That means whenever I serve you an affidavit, you must rebut to every single thing I say or it's true, and you must do it by an affidavit and have it served on me just like I did you.
And that means under penalty of perjury.
Yes.
And you put there's certain, like we said, not all affidavits are created equal. Language in the affidavit is blah, 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 stands as law. No court has jurisdiction to rehear this matter. It's done. There's no appeal. So,
the word of man who will not make oath is worth nothing. The word of a man who will not make oath is not to be heard. An infamous man should not be allowed to make an oath. He who states contrary things is not to be believed. He who states contrary things is not to be heard. No man is believed in court but upon his oath. There is no stronger link among men than an oath. An infamous man is repelled or prevented from taking an oath. No man can be immersed in his absence except for his default. While the battle continues, He who leaves the battlefield or refuses to contend loses by default. He who is not willing to speak the truth is a betrayer of the truth. He who does not speak the truth is a traitor to the truth. The truth will out. Once again, the truth will out. Truth fears nothing except concealment. Suppression of the truth is equivalent to the expression of what is false. Punishment is due when the word of an oath be false. If one falsely accuses another of a crime, the punishment due for that crime should be inflicted on the perjured falsifier. Deuteronomy 19:18. A man is free to make any decision he wishes, but a man is never free to escape the consequences of his decisions. Slavery is outlawry. An unequivocal statement prevails over an implication. The expression of one thing is the exclusion of another. All things are presumed against a wrongdoer. An lawful action voids all following related actions. If a rule hearkens to lies, all his servants are wicked. A master is responsible for his servant. A servant must obey the master within the law. Ignorance of the law shall not excuse a man or relieve him from the consequences of a crime or from a liability of a contract. Hear that, law enforcement? Criminal conspiracy is the agreement of rash men. When the righteous rule, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people mourn. Perverted minds are easily corrupted. Similar is not the same. The greatest in incitement to guilt is the hope of sinning with impunity. There's that word again. Justice consists in doing no injury to man. Decency in giving man no offense. Good faith is the foundation of justice. There's that word again. Mistakes, neglect, or misconduct are not to be regarded as accidents. A man may renounce a law introduced for his benefit. No man is obligated to accept a benefit against his consent. No man ought to gain from another man's ignorance in matters of legal fiction. The investigator of a crime is worse than he who perpetrates the crime, or the instigator of the crime is worse than he who perpetrates the crime. I'm sorry about that. They who consent to a wrong and they who do it shall be visited with equal punishment.
Back up. Let's talk about what that means. The instigator of a crime is the one at fault, not the perpetrator. In other words, if you're antagonized enough and you have a physical response or a harder physical response, you're not the. Read that again. You're not the responsible party. Read that again, Josh.
The instigator of a crime is worse than he who perpetrates the crime.
Oh, he who perpetrates the crime. So
yeah, the instigator of a crime is worse than he who perpetrates the crime.
So I'm not sure how to read that. If
they're basically saying you're provoking it. Someone who's provoking it but is not doing it themselves is because they're a pussy is worse than the person that actually went up there and busted him in the mouth. Do you see how that played out?
Yeah, but I think it goes beyond that. I think it goes beyond developing a scheme that somebody else carries out.
Could be. Absolutely, yes. Premeditation, plotting. But I've got to get going with this, Ethan.
Right on.
They who consent to a wrong and they who do it shall be visited with equal punishment. Acting and consenting parties shall be liable to the same punishment. Intent is not a crime. No man ought to be punished for intent. Punishment ought not precede a crime. He who does not forbid a crime while he may sanctions it. He who does not blame approves. Gross negligence is held equivalent to intentional wrong. The proprietary of the words is the safety of property. It is, and what that says is words matter. It is immaterial whether a man gives his assent by words or by acts or deeds. Ignorance of the law does not excuse misconduct in anyone, least of all a sworn officer of the law. Ignorance of the law does not excuse misconduct in anyone, least of all a sworn officer of the law. No man ought to be judged unheard. A judge ought not practice law from the bench. If you judge, understand. Do not judge when the truth is unknown. No man can be at once judge and party. The twisting of language is unworthy of a judge. A wrongdoing judge is an anathema and an enemy of man. To a judge who exceeds his office or his jurisdiction, no obedience is due. A man who acts under an unconstitutional statute does so at his own peril and must take the consequences, Mr. Law Enforcement and Mrs. Law Enforcement officers. A man who acts under an unconstitutional statute does so at his or her own peril and must take the consequences. Everyone is presumed innocent until his guilt is proved beyond all reasonable doubt. No man can transfer a right which he has not. Things taken or captured by pirates and robbers do not change their ownership. No man gives what he does not own. What is mine cannot be taken away without my free will consent. Know who you deal with. Know thyself. Know who you are. A workman is worthy of his hire. In commerce, truth is supreme. Truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. An unrebutted affidavit stands as truth in commerce. False spelling does not vitiate an affidavit. In commerce, a matter must be expressed to be resolved. He who leaves the battlefield first loses by default. He who is silent appears to consent. Sacrifice is the measure of credibility. A lien claim can only be satisfied by point rebuttal. In substance, at law, by affidavit, or payment, or when not disbarred by tacit procuration agreement obtained by default. By jury resolution, claims made without accountability are void. The Admiralty Court has no jurisdiction over those matters which are determined by the law of the land. That includes your administrative courts. Principals and associates and agents should suffer the same punishment. He who ratifies a bad action is considered as having ordered it. Property ought to be valued at the will of the owner. The law allows man to take arms against the armed aggressor. A crime may be forgotten, yet remains. A crime is not diminished nor expunged by the passing of time. A wrong is not diminished nor expunged by the passing of time. He adds one offense to another, who, when he commits a crime, joins to it the protection of a defense. The multitude of those who are heir is no excuse for error. That means just because everybody else is making the same mistake doesn't mean it's your excuse or legal for you to, or lawful for you to make the same mistake. Excuse that slip of the word legal. A wrong is not presumed. A wrong follows the wrongdoer forever through all jurisdictions. Once an offense follows the offender forever, an offense follows the offender forever through all jurisdictions. A crime follows the perpetrator forever through all jurisdictions. He who seeks equity must do equity. He deservedly loses the benefit of law who intends to subvert the law itself. Do you hear that, law enforcement? He who deservedly loses the benefit of law who intends to subvert the law itself. Oh, never mind. I messed that all up, didn't I? He who deservedly loses the benefit of law who intends to subvert the law itself. Let the infliction of punishment increase as transgressions multiply. If you know not the name of things, the knowledge of things themselves perish. And if you lose the names, the distinction of the things is certainly lost. The expression of one thing is the exclusion of all others. And this is a very important one. Notice to principal is notice to associates and to its agents and to successors. Notice to associates and to agents and to successors is notice to principal. So when you see notice to agent is notice to principal is notice to agent on the affidavits or on, I believe it, is that on the notice of liability as well, Ethan?
No.
Okay.
That means that it's open court. Everyone is to know. And just because it wasn't delivered to the respondent doesn't mean that the respondent isn't responsible for having received that document because it has been delivered to one of his agents or successors or such. So not as simple as I just said. The claims would be going against the one it's addressed to. In the event there's a successor, the successor cannot get out of the responsibility of dealing with whatever wrong has been detailed within that affidavit. They may not be personally responsible, or they may. It depends on the circumstance, the situation. Was it a one-time thing, or is it something that just continues on, administrator after administrator?
Good deal. I'm glad you were able to clarify that.
Thank you.
So that is the entirety of the Maxims of Law document that you can find on oralhealthwithcannabis.com/services. So I hope you guys got some benefit from reading it, and as we stopped and talk back and forth to explain the well, I guess it'd be
intricacies.
Yeah. And it's definitely helpful. And I felt like it needed to be said. It needed to be out there so everybody can absorb it. Put this thing on loop, everybody, and just listen to it, man. There's a lot of information in this video, and it will help me and Ethan tremendously if you guys understand this stuff that we just talked about.
It'll help you to understand it. It'll help you to know it. Man. Knowledge is power.
That's right. Yes. So I'm kind of glad that I've got a second to jump on here with Ethan and try to help you guys out. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope it does help you. Because it's something that we all need to be learning, and there's tons more. And I understand everybody's busy, and when we got time, we'll jump and help chip in when and where we can. So
thanks, Josh. Appreciate you coming on and helping me talk this, and bringing up the fact that I had left some information out when I did my first reading that is quite critical. So thank you much, sir. I appreciate that.
No problem. I appreciate everything you're doing for us, Ethan. Keep studying, brother, because it's now's the time, and everything's happening for a reason, and the Creator don't give us anything more than we can handle. So I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for helping me figure out everything, and continue on.
All right, Josh. Have a good evening.
You too. Be safe, everybody.
All right. Thanks again. Bye-bye. So I want to thank you all for listening, for your comments, your thumbs up, your support. We're getting this done. We're going to own our authority. We're going to hold our servants accountable. So this is a message for everybody, but I think it's important for the truckers right now. It's important for all of us right now. Again, thank you all. Much love. We'll be back soon with more.